right, so what have you been doing? How you been spending your time?
Well, I've been staying home like everybody else.
Right?
Doing my social distancing whenever I go to the store, but basically just being home. I go out for a daily walk.
Yeah, amazing times, right? We
Yeah.
can just click things to our home still. Infrastructure's not falling apart, so we're pretty comfortable.
Yeah, you just have to be home, that's all.
Yeah. Crazy world, right? It's,
Well, turns out you can work from home.
yeah, plenty of working remotely.
No reason to come to the office. That's a good talking point for next time somebody tries to work from home.
No, that's right. So here we are, post-apocalypse in the...
In the midst, I would say.
Yeah, right in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right in the middle. So we're checking in with our TinderLand audience with updates from this part of the world, from the love life of Andrea and her exploits, as well as just checking in with everybody.
Just to see how everybody's doing. And also, I don't see Jonathan very often. So because we've all been home, we're actually recording this outside in my backyard.
Yeah.
In the sun in the spring. So you might hear the birds or maybe a bee or the neighbors.
Yeah, it's a nice springtime atmosphere out here, which is nice and fitting for the occasion.
Yes, so nice to be home. It sucks to be under this situation. I miss non-essential businesses. I miss touching my face.
Hey, man, and kudos to our delivery people and everyone bringing us things, because that's I'm trying to tip big time.
Yeah, grocery store people as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All these people, all the nurses and doctors, just everybody else. Yeah.
I'm a pretty average tipper, but in this world, I'm tipping big when people bring me stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrea's being
I mean, there's
pursued by a bee.
There's a big bee right here. I'm trying not to scream like a little girl.
But yeah, and then right in the onset of all this, when coronavirus was a thing, but we didn't really know what that meant yet, both you and I indirectly had international plans on the horizon.
Right. I had made plans with the Ice Princess pretty much from March through the summer. Had plans of me going over for us to go to Edinburgh. She was going to come here for Easter. We were going to go to Norway, hopefully for her birthday. And then we have a trip to Sri Lanka that has not yet been canceled for the end of June.
End of June. We shall see.
So all these plans and then like nothing happening now. The world is on pause. We're giving Mother Nature a break.
That's right. You know, and speaking of that, pretty surreal seeing some of the headlines and pictures coming out of places like, LA for one, but Asian cities as well, where people are able to see the skyline, or, in the case of India, the Himalayas and things like that.
Or the Venice, the canals are clean.
Right.
Dolphins are swimming nearby. Just everything.
That is really something that quickly we can just kind of stop for a moment, And I'm not a big environmentalist, but that's pretty compelling.
It's nice, right?
Yeah,
it's nice to see nature coming back. And I am a big advocate to work from home. So I think there should be another reason. It's just good for nature.
Well, that's an interesting part of the commentary is as we make all these decisions, reintroducing ourselves to society, people are going to have another reason to state to their employers that they intend on working remotely if they can. Because, why contribute to that? It's been demonstrated. Yeah. Remember last month when the sky was clear?
Exactly.
It's kind of a big deal.
And another good thing about all this chaos that's been going on is the opportunity for people to stay at home and play with their children, give them breakfast, with them through lunch, bringing families closer. Some rise of domestic violence, too, with that. But, there's also a good side you can look at.
No, that's right. And that dual manifestation of it is interesting, right?
Yeah.
But you're probably seeing a lot more of the former than the latter, where people are rediscovering traditional ways of being together. Lots of puzzles being built and such. Right.
People now spending more time together than they normally do. A little bit of tension. Also, people who are staying active through this quarantine, right?
Yeah.
Kudos to you for keeping off your weight. That's very good.
Yeah, that's right. Well, gyms are definitely doing their part to try to stay in business as well with
all these online classes.
Yeah, and some of them are saying, hey, we published some YouTube videos, pay for that. And then some others are actually doing the live training and stuff.
That's right.
Everything in between. Yeah.
That's right.
It's a completely new entrepreneurial mindset, too. A completely different landscape. It'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah, so I had all these plans coming up. Easter, as we speak, Easter has just passed. So that would have been a time for me to see Ice Princess here. That didn't happen. Everything, all the borders are closed.
So it's been a minute, right? Ice Princess is getting serious.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is, I think.
I mean, how many times have you been to Iceland in the last year?
I don't know, like 8 times maybe? 9?
I mean, that's a lot.
A lot.
That's a lot. That's impressive. And if you remember setting your goal for jet set dating, and you've done that, right?
Right. I mean, my goal, honestly, if she hears this, I don't give a shit, is for her to come here.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, I love Iceland, and if she still has a good job and a career, there's no reason to move. But it's just the country's just very cold. It's 10 months snowing. That's just too much.
You want to bring her somewhere warmer.
Warmer, but she's a former, Soviet socialist babe.
Right, Eastern European.
This is as capitalist as it gets.
That's right.
So, I would love for her to come over this way. Why not? We have good weather.
Well, when the world opens back up, we hope to have her as a guest.
Yeah, she was supposed to be here this weekend, and the goal was to go hiking, tubing down the river, and then maybe barbecuing, and then some, restaurant or brunch or bottomless mimosa here or there. But with all of this, we have to wait. I don't know when I'll see her next.
Yeah, world on pause.
I would be very happy to see her for her birthday, which is the end of May. At this point, I'd be happy just to make it through our vacation to Sri Lanka. We're going to go to Sri Lanka for like 2 weeks.
When's that schedule?
End of June, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, right. Okay, so this
and the Maldives as well. I mean, this is freaking sexy vacation.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Granted that it happens, and end of June, I would say that's about the earliest.
And the UK as well.
Right. Right.
London, specifically.
I would say that's probably the earliest that right now I could think, sure, that's conceivable. That could happen. End of June.
As far as I'm concerned, it's end of June. We're going to be there through July 4th. And as far as I'm concerned, everything's still going. I have not gotten any cancellation notices.
Right, right.
Yeah. So I'm going to go. I don't care what it looks like. So long as I can fly, I'm going to go.
So let's put you on the spot a little bit. Like,
okay.
I mean, this has been almost a year that you have been talking to Ice Princess.
That's right.
It was less than a year that you had some conversations that you and I were talking about.
Almost a year.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. So, what's your conversation with her like in terms of where things are at?
I think prior to the coronavirus, my plan was to spend more time there since I kind of can work from home. Mm-hmm. I was to go over and, eventually spend 2 weeks and then come back and then go and spend 2 weeks, spend more time together. My main goal is to move her here, giving, I don't know, I just think here would be better life for her. I think Iceland maybe is a more safer future as opposed to the U.S., but here you have a better quality of life. By quality, I don't mean medical or anything like that. I think it's the same, just different ways of dealing with things. But better life as far as more sun, more being outside, right? There's a lot of, like, the winter's very heavy over there. So my ultimate goal would be to move her here. I just don't know if that's going to happen. And I also want to put no pressure, right?
Yeah, that's right. And when you guys spent time here before, it was actually a really nice vibe, it sounded like.
Yeah, it was very nice. We went to, she came to Philly. When we landed from the trip, we went to Savannah and DC. That was very nice. She likes it. It would just be very, very strange to her. She's just straight up European. She's not used to certain things.
It could be an adventure too, though.
She's not used to like having to pay for her health care or having very little vacations. How she says, you guys only have 10-day vacations. And I can't even argue with that because we do only have 10-day vacations.
That's true.
But I try to tell her, if you have a good job, then you get better benefits, right? That's the only... But nothing's guaranteed here the way it is there. It's just different.
It's up to you to get a good job. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
It's up to me.
Yeah.
No problem. I think I'm on
I didn't mean just you, but the people. It's up to people to get a good job.
No, precisely. Yeah, you want to work for somebody that gives you good benefits. But my ultimate goal is to spend more time with her moving forward. The plan was for me to go over and stay 2 weeks, right? Start staying longer. But with this corona thing, I have to wait and see. I don't know what's going to happen. I'd just be happy to see her for her birthday. This is where I'm at. When I left to go to visit Ice Princess, last time was in the beginning of March. And the time before that, I saw her in February. But
get out there a lot, man.
It's fun. I love that. And then, Corona was on the rise in Italy, and also it was bad in China. But I was still like, whatever, it's just a cold. Yeah, I was aware that if I got it, it was gonna suck, right? And likely I would survive, but it would be like a shitty 2 weeks, right?
Well, and when you left too, you knew there were probably going to be some restrictions at some point, but what that was or what it looked like was completely unknown. But you'd landed, and it wasn't but 48 hours later when all of a sudden you heard.
Right. When I got to the airport, I flew out of Atlanta. It was empty, but there's still a lot of people. Social distancing was not a thing here yet. People were trying to be away from each other, obviously, but it wasn't. They were not trying to be 6 feet away, The airport was still somewhat busy. My mother was cautioning me against going. She said, this is really not the time for you to travel, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm going to be fine. The U.S. doesn't leave their citizens abroad. They're so, I think. And then that was the environment that I went. I left and everything was still, it was getting a little crazy, but it wasn't chaotic.
Pretty safe assumption, As a U.S. citizen, you're going to be able to get back.
For me, I was like, I am not canceling my trip.
Right.
If I get sick, I get sick. Or, well, I'm going to try not to be too close to people, but I'm still going to have a good time. I'm not going to cancel. Right. So I get there, and it was fine. The airport was empty. They had people pretty much away from each other in the airport in Iceland. They also had a lot of... hand sanitizer stations, but it wasn't crazy or anything. Pretty much do my usual, go to sleep because I'm very tired after Ice Princess picks me up. So I got there on a Wednesday. On Thursday, I had a tour to the Black Sand Beach, the South Shore of Iceland.
Which you were able to do.
Which I did,
right?
Because I'm very stubborn. I was like, I'm not going to cancel my trip.
Yeah.
So I was able to go, but when I wake up, Jay, I got this text from my mom, and it says, hey, Trump talked on the news, or he had a news conference, or whatever, I forgot what it's called.
He does those.
And basically, they were going to shut down the country for European people. But in the beginning, it wasn't now on a newspaper, because I woke up, we were 5 hours behind, right?
Sure.
So I didn't have all the details of what was happening. And through...
Do you mean 5 hours ahead?
No. Oh, yeah, we're 5 hours ahead. You guys are 5 hours behind, actually. Yeah. So I'm
glad we recorded that.
That's true. Whatever. 5 hours. You guys are 5 hours behind. And then, there wasn't enough information about the news conference. And then all my friends were texting me saying, hey, they're talking about quarantining people, and the idea that they're giving me is that they're gonna
Right.
put me on a tent somewhere
Right.
or at a Red Cross hospital for 2 weeks. And then I said, listen, if this happens, I'm just not gonna go back. I don't care. I'll stay in Iceland for like 2 months. Ice Princess was like, I was a little panicked the first day. And Ice Princess was like, look, if something happens and you have to be in a tent with other people, just stay here, right?
Yeah. Why would you go back? Absolutely.
And it wasn't until the end of the trip when Jonathan, you sent me that article, and then I was able to be at ease. And he basically said, okay, you're going to come back, but you're going to have to self-quarantine at home. I'm like, okay, I stay home anyway.
Like,
so
that's
to
what
me,
I do anyway.
funny that my lifestyle is it's like mandatory now.
I self-quarantine as a lifestyle. That's
Pretty
right.
much.
Sort of both of us do that. Hey, here's to working remotely.
Yeah, it's great. So then I was a little nervous. I went to the tour. I was waiting for the bus to pick me up, and then I sent you a video message saying, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's see.
Well, the key difference there is you have two sources of information. One is the sky is falling narrative from whoever, and the other is, going to the Homeland Security website, for example.
Right, but that morning there wasn't a lot of details out. So
Right.
anything, people were imagining everything. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. You see
Yeah.
on the news the cruise ship from the Princess, that they quarantined those people and they kept them in like a tent, like a war thing, like just very bizarre. I didn't want to have to do that, so I was freaking out a little bit. Yeah. But I still went on a tour.
It was unprecedented. Anything could have happened. That's right.
Right.
That's right. So yeah, you get the advisory that basically you're going to be subject to enhanced screening.
Right. So then I read through everything. I'm like, okay, I can come back. I'm a U.S. citizen. They're going to even give European people enough time to come back as well, to change their plans. I may or may not have some kind of test, right? And that's all I know. And then I have to self-quarantine. And then to me, I was like, okay, no problem. At no point I'm panicking. After that, I find out that I'm not going to be on a camp somewhere. Then in my head, it's like, no big deal. I'll go back home.
We could Skype the next episode from a FEMA tent.
But to put that to perspective, that didn't click to me until Friday, right? But on Thursday, the day that I had the tour, where all of this news broke overnight,
Yeah.
I was a little freaking out a little bit.
Well, and for you to have been the last to do this tour and to be in the normal world, and then all of a sudden wake up to the exact opposite, is just a surreal kind of snapshot of what everybody went through about that day.
And I got to experience what other Americans went through as well, because there was also Americans on my tour. And everybody was calling the airlines. A lot of people were leaving the next day or Saturday.
Right.
And they were just worried
Whether
that
or
they
not
weren't.
there was a reason
They're going to
to
quarantine. What was going to happen? I was in a group with some teachers from Chicago, and they were calming me down a little bit. I was a little unnerved on Thursday. I was like, I just don't want to be in a tent. That was my thing. I don't want to be in a tent.
I guess our generation has grown up with the idea of like a FEMA tent at a Katrina. Right, that's where you're seeing yourself. I mean, before that, you're talking about internment camps of World War II for Asian Americans.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
since then, I don't know what else there's been.
I didn't care so much about catching the Wuhan or coronavirus.
Yeah.
What I care about was being isolated somewhere that I didn't want to be for 2 weeks.
Well, of course, yeah.
That would have sucked.
Yeah, well. Like we said, as soon as you saw self-quarantine, you're like, I'm prepared for this.
Right. So, went through the tour. South of Iceland is beautiful, the Black Sand Beach.
Yeah.
I didn't see anybody getting swept up.
Uh-huh.
Is that how you say it? By the ocean?
Yeah. Swept up, swept away, swept out.
Swept out.
Any of those?
Swept away, I think.
Many prepositions we can fill in, yeah.
And it was fun. Ice Princess was very sick. She did not have corona. I was 100% sure that she didn't have it because she was sick already for maybe 2 weeks before I got there, or 3. and she had just a nasty cough, right? But no fever, never had a fever. We wake up to go to Edinburgh very early, like 4 in the morning on Friday. And like I said, Ice Princess was sick already. We got to the airport. She was like, I don't know, do you think we should go? Everybody's pretty much freaking out because the country was digesting the United States ban for Europeans. So it was all over the news there, right? It wasn't a good sentiment to go to Edinburgh because we were afraid that maybe Iceland Air would cancel their flights, maybe they would close the borders while we were out. All those things going through our head.
Well, and you're moving between the EU and the UK, so there's a little bit of gray area there. You don't know how that might shake out.
Precisely, and to the point that UK, Brexit,
Well, that's what I mean.
So I don't even know what are the rules for that. I'm like, if something happened, but
there may be no rules.
Right.
Yeah.
But I told Ice Princess, let's just go. We're already here. We woke up early. I mean, nothing's gonna happen. And anyway, if something happened, they give people a few days to leave. Right. That we go with that sentiment. Tired.
When it comes down to it, there's usually room for people to work things out.
Yeah.
When edicts are issued from upon high, typically they're done so in a manner where people don't have to panic. Although they do and they will.
Right. And we get to the airport, go to security. Everything's very empty. The flight is empty. We fly into Glasgow. I took the train to Edinburgh. The streets were pretty much empty. There was hardly any tourists. It was very, very empty.
Did you meet the Duke of Edinburgh?
No, I saw the coffee shop, either where Harry Potter was written or whatever. It says the home of Harry Potter. I think maybe J.K. Rowling was writing the books. There's the Elephant something. I'm just terrible at giving names. Elephant something cafe. But yeah, it was a very beautiful city. It was empty, pretty much. Not a lot of people. Not a lot of people wearing masks and gloves. Like leaving out of the airport in Atlanta, there was some people wearing masks and gloves.
I'm assuming Edinburgh was not.
No, the Scots are just like, fuck, we're gonna drink and that's it.
Well, they're on the fringe, right? People aren't passing through Scotland to get places, just like Iceland. You guys are,
So the weekend that I was there, I read it. There was like 100 cases total in the country of Scotland, and in Edinburgh was only like 15 people.
Sure.
So I was like. I was very confident that I didn't have anything.
Yeah. Would be a lot different than being in London or Paris, something like that. I mean, big difference. Big difference.
So it was fun. We were walking around, seeing the sights. The Scottish people drink very early. Like, they get shit-faced by 4 p.m. It's just very strange to see.
Apparently, those are my people.
But, like, belligerent drunk. It was funny. We went also to a place to eat. It's called... so we woke up in Scotland, right? Everybody was still acting normal. It was more scarce. There wasn't a lot of people. But people were not wearing gloves or masks. It was I pretty much felt it normal, right? Especially looking back to today, comparing it. People were pretty much acting normal. There just wasn't a lot of people.
It hadn't
out
quite
walking.
hit, yeah.
Yeah. We went out to eat to a nice few restaurants while we were there, had drinks. What's funny, actually? Ice Princess is terrified of haunted and haunting stories.
Right.
She just cannot sleep. So, of course, every building in Edinburgh, it's like really fucking old, right?
Super old,
and likely, if anywhere is haunted, for sure, it's Edinburgh, right? Just because it's so old, so many people died there. We ended up staying at this place, and I'm walking around, and I tell Ice Princess, this place looked really funny. She's like, oh, I think this used to be a hospital. And I was like, no, it didn't used to be a hospital. She basically didn't sleep the second night because she kept thinking of ghosts.
But it was an old hospital, though?
Well, what I said was, this is a nice hospital. People didn't die in it. It's a happy hospital. So there's like no haunting because it's a hospital that nobody died on. She's like, yeah, right.
I mean, it's a rosy view, but every hospital.
Right. But, to be honest, when we checked out, it was, I asked the guy, did this used to be a hospital? He said, well, this used to be a nursery. So it is a happy hospital.
Oh, a maternity hospital.
Yeah, a maternity
A
hospital.
bringer of life.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go.
So I told her, see, no reason to be
You ended
scared.
up being right.
Yeah.
There you go. Look at you.
But she's so terrified of ghosts. It's so funny. She was a little concerned about maybe our flights being canceled, but we
Sure.
ended up having a good time. Came back to Iceland. The streets were empty. Her place of work was still open, right?
What was about the date that you got back into Iceland? Because it's kind of the latter stage of your trip when stuff's getting real.
I came back on the 15th, which is a Sunday.
Uh-huh.
And I came back home on the 17th. They actually coming back home.
Right.
So, going back to Iceland, there was no social distancing implemented. Yeah, there's still some tourists in the country. Everybody's pretty much getting ready to go back home, right?
Mm-hmm. And remember, you had gotten that last tour, the last day that those...
The day that everybody,
Iceland
that they
tours
announced
were-
all the borders closing, I pretty much was on a tour.
I myself had an experience ongoing with traveling abroad. My wife was in South America.
Yeah.
She was visiting
Right.
a friend in Rio,
Totally familiar with the story.
which you may be familiar with such a place, right? So they had a similar experience where they were taking the gondola up the mountain. And, there was maybe a normal amount of people, maybe a little bit less crowded, but she said it was business as usual. She gets up to the top, and they did have workers who were vigilantly scrubbing down the poles and handholds and things like that. And she remembers getting off the gondola and in her best Portuguese, which isn't very good.
No, her Portuguese is, I think, is non-existent. Bless her heart.
She said she was giving it a new effort this time around down there. So I was glad to hear it.
Yeah, that's good.
She gave her best obrigada, and the lady just froze too. Like no one had ever told her thank you for anything she had ever done professionally. So it was like a nice moment where she was thanking some of the the folks on the ground there. But anyway, they do that tour. They go up there, and same thing. The very next day, all of that was closed. So the same kind of thing, just seeing the...
Overnight, almost.
Yeah, overnight, seeing the commerce and the tourism and everything just shut down around you.
How was it for you being back here, right, having a loved one abroad?
Well, and this was her first time abroad with her blue passport, right? So I felt a little bit more secure that there wasn't going to be any problems her coming back in, So, similar to you, as soon as you get into the details, you're like, well, okay, it's fine. But anything could happen. I think the concern was more, rather than, travel restrictions, it was more about the economics of it for the airlines. You assume that an airline isn't going to just leave people in a country. At the same time, if the flights are banned going to South America in this case, then how are the airplanes getting there in order to take people back? And so it could just be a canceled flight, an inconvenience thing.
That always goes through our head, but in all honesty, right now, there are flight bans on Europe. And for instance, Iceland Air is still flying to 3 different countries. They are contractually obligated to still keep flying, right? They've been flying to all these places like Boston and I think either Sweden or Denmark, and then somewhere in the UK, I think.
Right. And that's the thing. There's always a way, like, people in the developed countries aren't going to fall through the cracks.
Right.
It seems. So far, right? So far so good, knock on wood and all that. But society is doing a pretty good job, I think, honestly. And I hate all the uncertainty and, people who have been affected and their families by the virus. But at the same time, it seems like it's been managed okay where we're not in dire straits just yet.
Not yet. I think from what I read, this will be a V-shaped recession. I think it'll hit down, then it'll go back up.
Sure.
That's what I hope for everybody.
Sure. Yeah.
But, coming back, so I pretty much tell Ice Princess, hey, I'm going to leave. Everything's still fine with my flight. They actually canceled my flight. I was flying out of Newark. That was my last stop in the U.S. from Atlanta to Newark, Newark to Iceland. And the flight canceled. They put me through JFK. But my local Delta flight was also canceled. So I got to switch them for free, which was no big deal. Landing it, once I left Iceland, actually, funny story, I was given shit for being in Iceland for too long. Not for too long, but for too often.
By Border Patrol?
By Border Patrol in Iceland. They're like, why do you come here so often? I wonder if I could pass by one of those European who bring, cocaine into the country. Right? Because there's people who fly there often.
Sure.
Right. I would never do that. I don't think the
money's
money's
enough.
enough.
Glacier water back into the States illegally.
But they're like, yeah, why do you come so often? I say, I have somebody I date that I come see once a month. They're like, oh, you cannot overstay. Basically, I can't overstay. There's 90 days in every 6 months.
Right.
But the thing is, I have too many stamps. Right, I just have too many stamps.
Yeah. Not many people stay for a week as long as you do.
Yeah, so I just go stay for a week and come back. And then I told her, you can go ahead and count the stamps. Like, you can see that I didn't overstay. And I said, actually, if I come once a month, every 6 months, and I stay for about a week, I will, mathematically, that doesn't add up for me to overstay.
Right.
Then they were entertained about the idea of me coming to Iceland to see somebody.
That's right.
But yeah.
Now, that was when you were going in?
Leaving the country, which is odd, right? You would think coming in they would be like, too many stamps, but it was leaving. I'm like, dude, I'm going back home.
I guess I never thought about this before, but the Border Patrol exit people don't have as interesting questions or follow-up as the people policing the entry.
I don't know what they have to do within their duties, but I would not ask anything if I didn't have to, because at this point they're leaving. Like, who the fuck cares?
That's kind of the thing. It's like, that's training for to be an entry agent. Right?
Oh, I see. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. You get to ask the questions, but it doesn't really fucking matter.
Yeah, it was just a strange thing to happen. Then I left. Coming back, the flight was very empty. This couple was next to me, coughing the whole time. And of course, I was wanting to be alone, right? So I moved. That middle seat that has 3 or 4 chairs, that was basically empty. So I was just sitting there by myself.
Oh, good.
Had some wine. Prior to our arrival, when they said we're going to land in, about an hour or whatever, they gave us paperwork. And it was basically a form. They had to fill it out saying, asks you if you have been to China, if you have been to Wuhan, if you have been to the Shenzhen zone, 26 countries. Mm-hmm. I had to say yes, Iceland. And now not Scotland, right? Wrote down, they asked if I had been in contact with anybody that had the coronavirus, just things like that. Once we landed, they opened up the door. And I'm in JFK. This is about 7 p.m. or so.
And this is already like your reorganized flight. So you're already in the system.
Rerouted, because
right.
I was supposed to land in Newark.
And there were either 12 or 13 airports that they were landing in.
And to put into perspective, after the border closures, and a lot of flights canceled.
Yeah, exactly.
So once the airport is on the ground, they open the door. 2 people come from the health department, I would assume. I don't know who's in charge of that. Mm-hmm. They're wearing biohazard suits.
Like the whole hazmat suit.
Yeah,
and
I
right?
felt like I was in an Ebola country or something.
Right.
Like, this is the seriousness that there was.
My generation sees the end of E.T. when everybody's in hazmat suits and it's the plastic hallways and all that stuff.
A little frightening, right,
Yeah.
as you're landing, but I was like, no big deal, I'm not sick. Then they're saying 1 by 1 person needs to come out. They're going to pick up the questionnaire that we filled out on the paper, the one that I was talking about, and they're going to take your temperature. Behind these guys, there were a couple of police officers wearing gloves and masks. And I think they were ready to take down anybody who refused to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So I came in, I handed my form to the guy in this biohazard suit. The other guy next to him is asking me, have you been to Wuhan? Have you been in contact with anybody from whatever? Are you coughing? I said, no. They take my temperature. It was 99 degrees. Normal is like 98.5. A little high, but not feverish, because I was flying out all the time, and I was a little drunk. Of course, I was having one because I was anxious, about coming back home. I was
Whenever you're entering into a pre-apocalyptic scenario,
right.
You might as well have one or two.
It's funny on these apocalyptic movies when the world's ending, like Armageddon, and whatever, Total Impact, whatever the movies are, right? I always see those people who have sex last minute, and I'm like, fuck you, you're such a bastard, why would you do that? Now I totally understand it. I'm like, I just want to have sex before the world ends. Don't judge at all. I could see how your brain goes there after all of this stuff.
If you have nothing to do and you can't control anything.
Right.
Sure.
And then, get through the security. I spent the night in JFK because, not in JFK, nearby, because I couldn't make it through a connection flight. The last flight at night was canceled.
Right.
Landing in JFK, I basically go through immigration, give the immigration officer my passport. He doesn't even touch it. You know how picky they usually are. They at least ask some questions. That's where you been. And what he was asking me is look to the camera. So I'm looking at the camera and I'm smiling because I think he's going to take a photo. And then he replies to me, it's not recognizing it. And then I say, well, what is supposed to be recognizing it? And he's like, oh, this is facial recognition. And then I reply, did I sign up for that? When did I do that? And he's like, okay, well, let's try again. Stay still. Goes with the camera. And he's like, okay, you can come through. Never looked at my passport. Never grabbed anything. Facial recognition. Which somehow I signed up for. I don't know when.
Well, you've probably entered in at least once in a place where they do that, where they've taken the picture.
Think off the cruise.
Right? Okay, yeah. And so after that, it's in the system.
Yeah.
I've only seen that in Australia and then coming back in like once or twice.
But very efficient going between the airplane and the immigration. There are people in biohazard suits directing us. And I was really like, it felt like a war zone.
Right.
I was like, wow, this is some
I guess
crazy
there's
shit.
nobody there except for
I
you guys.
left. No social distancing, no closed borders. I came back. Everybody's freaking the fuck out. Closed borders.
Yeah, you left before
chaotic.
and you came back after for sure.
Yeah. Within that week that escalated, I lived through all of that.
Yeah.
It was very crazy.
It was the same thing for my wife abroad where she left and South America was very low risk in terms of, U.S. was getting it before South America.
Right.
So the equation worked in her favor, whereas with you, it was escalating risk where you were going. But yeah, when she came back, everything was the new norm. She didn't leave the house for 10, 15 days, hadn't driven.
Yeah, quarantine. I had to do that as well. But, going through my main concern the whole time was going through the airport in JFK. So I was wearing gloves, and then I had a little, not a little mask, but a little bandana that I had it on. And then I was sitting away from everybody because I knew New York was bad.
Yeah,
and at that time, it wasn't bad like it is now. But I knew that, hey, I know a lot of people come to JFK, and it's a big hub, right?
Well, and in retrospect, those are smart precautions because, just the way the virus moves, like having any sort of medium, blocking your breathing is going to keep you from spreading and contracting from people around you.
But, I essentially got there, slept. The airport was very empty. In the morning was very empty. I just stay away from people. The flight from JFK to Atlanta was packed.
Right.
Packed. I could not keep social distance. No thing is social distance.
Sure.
I landed, followed the instructions of being home for 14 days, which is usually what I do anyway. Mm-hmm. I work from home, so to me it's just like no big deal. This is just how things are. But it was a bizarre thing, man, to go through. It was, I was not scared. I cannot say that, I'm concerned about getting sick or blah, blah. I was certainly careful, but it was more of the, chaotic going on around me, more than what I felt inside.
Right, and it sounds like the flight you came back on was one of those flights, which normal economic circumstances would not have existed, but that airplane was coming back because they had an obligation to bring people back.
I think your wife was not, she didn't have to do the formal temperature taking.
Yeah, no, there was no travel restriction
from
to or
South
from
America.
South America.
Yeah,
South America had started closing off travel to there, though, because they were keeping the U.S. out, for example. But obviously she was already there. She was in Brazil, but her people at home in Peru were undergoing total quarantine.
Wow.
So they are more quick to have the, national centralized curfew and everything. That's kind of in their culture since back to the 90s, Fujimori and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But they had, after 6 p.m. have to be home. And this is interesting. They had odd even days.
Odd even days.
Yeah, and it was males one day and females the other day to be out. Which makes no sense in this context whatsoever because you have to keep households together, not limited people.
This was during a different pandemic.
No. This is right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right now they're still under this quarantine as far as I know.
But, coming back, okay, quarantine wasn't a big thing. I quarantined myself. I have been going out to buy groceries. I buy groceries for my family. I'm the only person in my family that goes out to buy things. It's essentially just me going in to get exposed.
Makes sense, right?
This entire time I've been saying I'm fine, no worries, wearing gloves when I come out. To be honest, now I'm not wearing any gloves. I'm just going and I don't touch my face, and then I wash my hands when I get back.
Yeah.
And I'm totally sick of this. Like, I miss going out to eat. I miss drinking with my friends. I miss touching my face, like, without thinking about it too much.
Well, you're a very social person, so you're one of the people who it's going to hit harder or faster than some.
Right. It just sucks.
Yeah.
But we managed to go kayaking and keep 6 feet apart, social distancing.
That was, it was in your quarantine period. We did 6 miles or so down the river on kayaks, which was fun.
I went in. I felt my kayak flipped. I was so cold.
It was a fun time though. It was good.
The whole time I'm thinking, because we weren't even supposed to be in the river, I'm thinking, I don't want to catch attention to myself, right? And the whole time I was like, I wanted to get your attention so you can help me get my boat, because my kayak was going under. But I didn't want to overdo it with the attention where people would call the cops for us.
Right. Yeah, and I don't want to overstate things, right? Like, I believe being out on the river, there was nothing, I don't think there was any advisory telling people to be off the river. That said, the parking lot we used was closed, and we used it anyway.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think
there was nobody on the river but us, and we were pretty far apart.
Well, no, we saw
some people tubing.
1 or 2 canoes, 1 or 2 tubes, and 1 or 2 kayaks. We saw like 5 or 6 people that day.
Right.
But it was very sparse. Now that said, we saw, I would say, more than usual number of people kind of scattered in the hills, sort of gathering amongst themselves.
Yeah.
Which goes back to your point earlier that people are revisiting like traditional ways of gathering and connecting, which I think is beautiful. I think it's great.
Right, and I'm kind of proud of the people who've been throwing parties on Zoom and Skype or FaceTiming or house party, right?
Yeah,
connecting
that's right.
with each other, still drinking at home, but then FaceTiming your friends so you're not alone.
No, I'd love to be tapped into a real time of the, the higher ups at Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Having gone through this, it's terrible. We're in a pandemic. At the same time, all of a sudden, their product became one of the most relevant things on the planet overnight. I just wonder how that feels, right? That's
amazing. Of course.
Yeah. A little unplanned expansion there. That's interesting.
Yeah, but to me, the hardest thing is to keep away from friends.
Right.
Not be able to go to the gym, because I go to the gym 3-4 times a week. That's a part of my social life, is going to the gym, right? Mm-hmm. Taking some boxing classes and yoga here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I also miss going out to eat and going out to brunch with you guys. It just, it's not easy for everybody staying home. This is a total different norm.
Yeah, it's different, right? It's
Yeah.
different. But you had to take the risk in going to Iceland? You knew that it
I
was
was
coming
not
up.
going to cancel. I would never cancel a
That's
trip.
right.
Maybe Ebola I would cancel.
Well,
Or maybe if a virus had the killing capacity of HIV in the 80s and it was transmitted through sneezing or coughing, then yeah, I would maybe lose my shit a little bit. But just like the way it is now, it didn't seem... I'm not at a high-risk category. Like, I'm 100% healthy.
so 2 points there. Like we've talked about before, if you had a disease with a virus with an incubation period like this, where people were contagious without knowing it, yet it was much more lethal, that would be a very, very... it would almost be akin to zombies.
Yeah.
Not knowing who's a zombie or if you're a zombie.
That's scary.
That's really scary.
That's a Resident Evil
Yeah,
thing.
it's even worse because you don't know, like, zombies find out immediately.
Yeah.
But if you don't find out till 2 weeks later and you've already spread it to everybody,
Wow, yeah, that's scary.
It is. The
That's
second
scary.
point is talking about, your risk group. You're not in an exposure risk group since it's been more than 2 weeks that you were in
No,
the
pretty
EU, right?
much. Like, I've been exposed to you, pretty much. That's it.
Yeah.
And we both have been staying home.
Yeah, we each have a circle of about 3 to 5, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's probably typical among people. The thing unique to your circle is being in proximity to your folks.
Yeah.
That brings a different risk around. So you have to be a little bit more careful in terms of you can't afford to be around people
Right.
who maybe are asymptomatic. So for you, your situation...
I would be the asymptomatic person. Like
Well, and you would be, and that's why it's a risk, right? So if you're looking at somebody you're thinking about hanging out with, the question to ask them is, have they been around new people in the last 2 weeks or not?
Yeah.
If not, the risk is almost zero or very minimal.
Right.
If they have been around people in the last 2 weeks, then you're like, well, maybe let's wait a few days. And that precaution right there puts you in the right place in terms of watching out for being around your folks and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to be careful with them. I mean, they're very healthy. They're not super old.
Right.
They're less than 60. But it would not be fun, certainly, right, to be home for 2 weeks.
No, it would make sense if there was some sort of tool that would help you manage that, right?
Yeah, so how do you feel about going to the grocery store now and staying very far away from people? I actually love it.
Before this, in pre-apocalyptic world, did not like to go to the grocery store. I would have my groceries delivered. They come to my house. I deal with that.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, just, stack it up on my porch or my garage. That's fine.
And it sucks having people so close to you.
So, I was at Home Depot. That's one place I've been to. I've been to the liquor store. I've been to the grocery store probably twice. I've been to Home Depot once. And when
Liquor stores are thriving, by the way.
they're doing okay. Every
People
time I
will
go in
always
there,
drink no matter what.
yeah, being at home. I mean, think about it. All coronavirus. So think about it. All the money and sales lost from bars have shifted to people's homes because people are not drinking, right? They're making sure they have it in quantity at home and they're getting down and they know they're going to be there for weeks. Liquor stores are doing just fine.
Right. And then also, I think likely they drink more because I would drink, like if I'm stressed out, have a drink on Wednesday. Normally that I wouldn't have on a regular, non-apocalyptic world.
Well, and if I go to the liquor store, typically, I'm not really splurging on anything because it's, I need it for this isolated event or I need a bottle here or there.
Right.
But now, I know I'm going to be at home for a week or two and I know what I want and I know I'm not getting it anywhere else. So I absolutely buy exactly what I need. So, yeah, I mean, for my wallet, the liquor store has done better than it normally would. And I bet that's true for, tens of millions of other people.
Right. And if this was a state with legalized marijuana, those stores will also be thriving.
I guarantee you they are too. That's funny. I wonder.
They're also essential business.
Yeah, right. They're open. I haven't even checked into that. That's
Yeah, no, they
interesting.
are open. They're
Yeah.
considered essential for a number of reasons.
That makes sense.
But yeah, looking at all this, everything that's happening now, I'm looking forward to having, a meal outside at a restaurant somewhere. I'm looking forward to people going back to work and everybody, just trying to live as normal as possible. Go back to what it used to be.
How long do you think that'll take?
In my view, I think it'll get better in the end of May, maybe June.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll be able to have restaurants opening. Still some social distance in place. I'm not sure what that means.
Open up every other table, for
Yeah.
example, right?
Perhaps, and I think we'll have different waves. I think we'll have another wave in the summer, and we'll have another wave of people catching it in the winter. The goal is not to
falls,
catch it,
yeah.
right? In the fall, actually. Thank you. The goal is not to catch it. The goal is just for us not to all catch it at once, right? So we don't overuse the healthcare system.
Yeah, well said. Mm-hmm.
So that's just the goal.
And keeping isolating vulnerable.
That's what I'm hoping. I think some people will lose their job in the hospitality business, unfortunately, because perhaps the people, I take Iceland, for instance, they're losing a lot of money from tourism, right? Because it's a country that relies heavily on tourism.
What did you say that, was it either the percentage of the economy that Iceland Air
I think
accounted for?
Iceland Air employs about 20% of the workforce in Iceland.
That's and that's not just air, that's their hotels and everything else, their tourism industry.
Everything.
20% of the population.
Right.
Yeah.
They're going to see less business, but they're going to see less business from people who go to Iceland and go camping instead of staying in a hotel. Those people who travel on a budget, those people will not travel. The people that have money will still going to travel. The engineers, the lawyers, the whatever, the people who have essential job functions, they're still employed. Those people are still going to life as usual.
But they're going to be able to do a lot more things without traveling, though. So they'll opt not to travel, too. I mean, it's going to hit them.
Yeah, maybe some people will not travel because they don't want to be sick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not because of economic reasons, but because of maybe there's a second wave and they're like, we're not going to travel now.
Well, if you live with somebody over 60 or 70, you wouldn't, right? You're just going to be like, nah.
Because I'll be totally honest with you, Jay. If the countries are open, I would have gone to Iceland already. I just don't care.
What's a little Rona for love?
Right? I would have gone, that's what I told Ice Princess. If the flights were still going, and she's like, the flights are going. I say, okay, but I'm not allowed in your country, right? They kicked out Americans as well.
Yeah.
But if they were running normal, I would totally go. Fuck, why not?
What's a little Rona for love?
Is that romantic or irresponsible? I think it's a little bit of both.
It's both. It's both.
But, yeah.
So let's talk about that for a second. When people talk about the intent versus the guidelines, the intention is from keeping one person from spreading the virus to the next. And as long as you stay within, 6 to 8 feet or more of people, that's not going to happen. You're good. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face, all that.
Right.
And then you have in some parts of the world and the country, people shaming, prosecuting, arresting people for just being outside.
In Brazil, they're arresting people for running on the beach.
This is crazy.
But the problem is Brazilian people have no limit. They'll take it very far.
And that's the thing. When you see people not using common sense, you have to regulate.
I think running at the beach, if it's not that crowded, why not? I think being at a bar, that's no.
Inside, at a bar, there's no reason for people to gather there. It makes no sense. Social distancing or no, I get that.
Yeah.
However, when local municipalities, be they in the U.S. or elsewhere, begin using law enforcement resources where, people are getting sick, there's a potential for chaos about, you don't know what's going to happen. People could be
I think it's ridiculous to arrest people other than, real criminal shit, robbery, assault, the stuff like that. But like jaywalking, like breaking a curfew because you walked on the beach during the pandemic, or just that's a little much. Hit them with the fine, or it's like smoking weed or drinking in public. Just hit them with the fine, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's happening. And you had the mayor of LA actually offer a reward for people to snitch on their neighbors, right?
Snitches get stitches. That's all I have to say.
We're talking about LA too. I mean,
This is crazy. Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny.
But yeah, I don't really. I'm not a medical expert, right? I'm just hoping everybody will go back to work normal, and this crisis will last very little. This shall not be a 2008. It seems bigger because it's a lot of people at once. Imagine all these restaurants closed, so therefore all these people applying for unemployment, right?
Yep.
And airlines and stuff like that. But hopefully we'll recover stronger, and hopefully we'll blame the party that needs to be blamed, and take some actions.
I'll say, to the extent that
That's my hope.
that makes a lot of sense.
Fuck up the Chinese.
Well, so, and I'm saying to the extent that anyone gets punitive on the Chinese government for this, my entire life, people have been, lamenting over the debt that we owe China. And so I'm just saying that somebody just says, no, we don't. And that's a pretty good recourse for...
I think the only way for them to understand is financially.
That's
right?
what I mean. And we just say...
That's the way for anybody to understand it, and understand it quickly.
Yeah.
Will I be going out of my way to buy products that are raised by people who have complete disdain for animal rights and human rights? Perhaps not. I will try not to buy anything from China, right?
Well, how's your Amazon Prime membership working out?
I actually don't order a whole lot of shit once in a while.
Once in a
But yeah,
while.
if I stay out of Amazon, pretty much, I'm guaranteed to
That's right.
stay away from helping China.
That's right.
Yeah, Ben. But I don't know. I just have reservations with the way they conduct things. The whole eating bad things. I mean, bats. Come on, they have no meat.
A funny story. I saw a tweet where it was a thread of people discussing how their families had reacted to the pandemic. One woman, a mother, posted a short story on she had to tell her 6 and 8-year-olds that they were not going to Disney World tomorrow.
That would break my heart, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the whole uproar, she let them know that they could use one curse word to express how they felt.
Wow.
And the little 8-year-old girl, apparently, this was the content of the tweet, said, "Why the fuck did someone eat a bat?"
Why though? I don't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about eating bats because that's just the most absurd thing that has come off from all this mess. It's just the fact that we have to recognize that people eat bats. And I saw videos of people eating small birds on the nest. I mean, what the fuck? Like, you throw lime and shit and eat it with the kid. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, why do people do that? I don't get it.
People do everything under the sun.
So, in a way, is Mother Nature coming back to correct all of this, right? And I just, it's just kind of hard to feel sorry for this kind of cultures that do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's some bats in a market, or it's a fucking laboratory where they're carrying shit they shouldn't.
And it's funny, in the midst of animals in a market, potentially who lived... geographically speaking, would never coexist in the same space because one of these animals is from Africa, the other one's from China. And they're all in this breeding ground for viruses, right?
Yeah, what the hell's a
in the
pangolin?
midst of all of this, we have the Tiger King.
Yeah, it is the perfect little remedy.
Just what a crazy thing to come out now. By the way, if you haven't watched it, very strange, watch it, please. It's very funny.
I think I am in the lower 0.01 percentile of people that have not watched Netflix since the pandemic. Since March, I've not watched Netflix.
Yeah, I've been watching just very silly things, just because everything's so serious this day. So I'm just watching silly things online that make me laugh
It makes sense.
right before bed.
People need distraction. People need entertainment. There's so much fertile ground to fill people's time and hands. It's the first time that it was actually healthiest to be on your mobile device.
It's true. You're saving the world simply by staying home.
That's
Who
right.
knew?
That's
Sit
right.
your ass on the couch.
I'm
Netflix and chill to save the world.
That's right. I'm a big fan of some memes that show, what did your grandparents do to save the world versus what you did to save the world. And
We stayed on the couch.
my grandparents were in World War II. Yeah, we stayed on the couch.
Brave. That's
Save the world,
such thing for our generation. That's just great.
Yeah, I know. We get a trophy just for fucking staying home. That's so
Wow.
typical. So typical.
That sucks.
Wow, it does. Oh man.
But yeah, anyway, to come to a close, I wish anybody that's listening to this that this is entertaining and it's able to take your focus out of perhaps the serious things going on with you, whether that be your job, your relationship, anything that's a little strained in your life. Hopefully this is a little bit, about an hour or so of a break for you. I'm very glad to be hanging out with Jonathan for the first time in 2 weeks.
Feels like longer, yeah.
Feels like longer. This feels like forever, right? I felt like I haven't seen Ice Princess in forever. It's only been 3 or 4 weeks.
And that's where we're all at, right? We just
Yeah.
have to wait and see,
Wait and see.
right?
But I'm hopeful. I don't know.
Yeah, and to your sentiments exactly, we hope just to bring everybody a little bit of distraction and entertainment in the interim here while we're trying to wait and see.
Just get through this.
Yeah, so.
All right. From my backyard, I hope you've been able to enjoy the birds. I bid you goodbye.
Yeah, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll check in next time. Everybody stay safe and keep away from the Rona.
Yeah, everybody stay safe. Talk to you later.